And that's why we talk about the principles of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda isn't rules. There are no rules, but the principles are there. So now how can I work with the principles?
Welcome to the Wild Herbs Podcast, where we unpack and uncover the healing properties of wild herbs so you can heal naturally with the plants beneath your feet. I am your host, April Punsalan, wild untamed plant lady, also a botanist, an ethnobotanist, and herbalist dedicated to teaching you how to heal with plants. If you want to learn edible and medicinal plants, you are in the right place, my friend. So I'm very thankful that today you get to hear from an intuitive and courageous master teacher and spiritual guide, Myra Lewin. Myra is a teacher and a healer, and she is the founder of Hale Pule, the School of Ayurveda and Yoga. And she is an Ayurvedic practitioner and an Ayurveda yoga therapist. She's also the author of 4 acclaimed books on Ayurveda and Ayurvedic cooking. And she's the host of 2 remarkable podcasts on holistic healing, Everyday Ayurveda and Yoga, and Spark Your Intuition. So you have
Mhm.
this amazing wealth of knowledge, natural healing, natural cooking, Ayurvedic medicine. So I'm
Mhm.
very thankful for your time and coming on the Wild Herb podcast to share your knowledge and wisdom with the listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to be able to share what I can about these incredible sciences and to see how we can all expand our living just with having some more information and then putting it into practice.
I love that. Yeah, putting it into practice is the important part, isn't it? The learning
Yes.
and putting it into practice. I watched your biography video, which was great. And you share on there how you healed your body and that you really went through a long period, relatively long period of trying to heal and not getting the answers. And then you discovered Ayurveda and yoga practices. Can you share with the listeners how Ayurveda changed your life? And maybe we should too start on what is Ayurveda. I think a lot of the listeners know what Ayurvedic medicine is, but some may not. But I would
Mhm.
love to hear what is Ayurveda to you and how it healed your body.
Ayurveda, it means the science of life or the science of living. And it's given to us from the Vedas, from which yoga and Jyotish or Vedic astrology, maybe you've heard of Vastu, which is about placement and energy of your home and so forth. And it's information that was given and then put into practice. And so we have thousands of years, and more particularly even in the past 500 years, then we have the knowledge of those who've put it into practice. And it's a set of principles to work from. And these principles are just based in nature because
Mm.
it's all based in the 5 elements of nature of earth, water, fire, air, and space or the ethers, and which is what defines us. It's what defines the nature around us, and it helps us understand how it can work. So that's just a little bit about it. And so it's a complete science in that it talks about the mental aspects as well as the physical and the spiritual aspects and how all of that is a dynamic working together. And so we do at Hale Pule then is we work from the principles.
Mm.
And there are many ways to execute those principles. Sometimes it's dependent on the individual because in Ayurveda, we look at the individual rather than coming up with something that's one size fits all and says, yep, everybody should eat these things for this vitamin or everybody should have this medication for this. It's not like that at all. Certainly, there are some things that work well for many people and that. But again, we keep coming back to what are the principles and then what is the situation right now that maybe that an individual needs. And so we look at it then as, am I in harmony with nature or am I out of harmony or out of balance relative to nature? And so that's what we're working with all the time. And what we do at Hale Pule is to educate people to be able to do this for themselves and train counselors to train people to do this so that you can understand your healing process and that you can understand what gets you into the place of needing healing. So that at the root of Ayurveda is to remove the cause of problems and to find the very best way to live so that we minimize the obstacles in life. And so for myself, as a young person, I recognized that there had to be something different, and then natural things appealed to me at a time when natural things were really not popular. So you were really considered a big outsider at that time, and I got called a lot of names for the choices I was making. I think that one of the most profound things for me was just as a kid, the janitor in my school, he would take us outside into the woods, and it was right there at the school, but he was an herbalist and he was a natural herbalist.
Mm.
And that was my first acquaintance with things. I was about 7 years old. And he would take us out there for just a little bit every day after school. And we would go walk around and he would show us the different plants and talk about what they could be used for and that. And that's when it started. And it wasn't until much later, that I started to really look for some answers to some problems I was having. And as you mentioned, for 19 years, I was just doing everything I could. I became a vegetarian, and actually not by design, but was vegan in the sense that I did not consume dairy products and that because I never had. But I was just trying whatever I could find. There wasn't a lot of information around. And that was when ghee was introduced to me. And at first I just thought, man, I don't like butter, so why would I like this? And finally, some friends convinced me to try it. And in a week's time, it made a huge difference in my body. Now, at that point, I had learned some things already about Ayurveda, not much, but I had learned some things. And when I say that, meaning I learned them intellectually, but I wasn't really embodying any of it because I thought I eat really healthy. I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And then this thing made such a huge difference in my life. And I trusted my friends. And so and it did. My body was much too dry and needed lubrication. And the ghee not only provided that lubrication, but the ghee is supportive to something called Agni, or digestive capacity. And mine was low. And so it perked up everything. And that then I said, oh, okay, there's more to this than I think. Because to me, it just looked like I continued to learn about herbs and that in the herbs that were in the United States and where I lived at the time. But I was using them just to, when I had a problem, then you use something to fix the problem. But I really wasn't getting to, why am I having the problems? That's what Ayurveda does. Yeah. So we don't treat until we find what's causing it, because often we can just remove the cause and the body and the mind will take care of themselves.
That's really true. That's so true, because I feel that it can be hard to prescribe herbs for certain things if the root cause of the problem isn't fixed. Someone's getting a lot of inflammation because they're eating dairy, or just as an example, or gluten, bread. Maybe bread with a lot of glyphosate. Maybe it's the glyphosate that's aggravating them, that if they don't get rid of the bread, then the healing's not going to occur. So that is wisdom. And I love how you said that, not your words exactly, but like an illness or disease happens from being out of balance with nature. And we are nature. So we have to have that balance in our bodies, inside and outside. And have you, with the ghee, did you realize cooking it with a certain food was more effective? Did you have a certain time of day that your body really liked it?
No, not particularly. From an Ayurveda standpoint, though, there are times of day when you're going to digest better, which is the middle of the day between 10 and 2, because that's when the sun is highest in the sky, and that's which supports your Agni, because the word Agni means fire in Sanskrit. And it's also when Pitta dosha, which has the fire element in it, is most active in us, which, by the way, is an interesting thing that people might enjoy hearing. And that is, for example, we'll recommend that you go to sleep by 10 o'clock at night. And the reason is because Pitta becomes active in your body at around 10 to 2 a.m., right? And so what that means is pitta is what's responsible for transformation and healing. An example is if you cut yourself, you cut your skin, right? And then you get up the next day and it's knitting back together already. And the best of that happens at that time frame at night. And if I'm awake and active and doing things, then not as much goes to healing.
That's a really good point. I suffer from that. My husband's a musician, so he gets home sometimes late. It'll be like 10:30, 11. And if I miss that window, it's incredibly hard for me to fall asleep.
Yes.
And I need to go to bed by 9, so I make sure I'm sleeping when that 10 o'clock time frame comes around. Because I
Right.
guess I'm pitta dominant, pitta vata. Yeah. So there's so much truth to that. And when I learned that, it helped me understand. And understanding can really help you start to practice it instead
Yeah.
of ignore what you know.
Yeah, exactly. Because the knowing isn't always the best. It's to observing. I have this tool, my body and my spirit, and in it, and having this experience. And that, yeah, to honor that and find out how powerful it really is pretty amazing.
Mm. Yeah, I love that I feel like so many of us will have something wrong and we know maybe what the solution is, but it's so hard to stick to it, to be disciplined and to have that discipline. So is there something that you called upon to help you have discipline in your life that made you follow your intuition and learn this practice and stick with it?
First thing I want to point out is that I learned in Ayurveda that when the dosha, which is the elements in us, it's just a way of describing those elements, when that's out of balance, it makes it very hard to be consistent. So when that air
Mm.
and ethers part of us, in other words, vata dosha, is in excess, all we want to do is be irregular. And so actually learning that helped me to get honest with myself about what was happening. And it didn't happen overnight. Some things I got better at, but then there were a whole lot of other little things. And that's what Vata likes to do. It's the light, airy part of us. And so then, oh, that irregularity. So regular eating and sleeping are probably the most important thing someone can do to get started. But then having a lot of other irregularity in life and talking too much and doing too much, those are all things that then feed that imbalance.
Mm.
And at first I wouldn't believe it because I felt like that was freedom, that it was free. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And we can, except that we just need to understand that we have consequences. And so it's a weighing of how important is it to me. And we say, and one of the things that we haven't really talked about yet is the mind, because the mind is, first of all, it's present all through our body, but the mind is something that we've been trained to think of the mind, that's who I am. And so when we can come to that realization that I'm not my mind, that it's just a tool that may not be well trained. And
Mm.
yeah, it's trained to just run all over the place and do whatever. It's like a puppy that hasn't been trained to go outside to go pee and poop. So then as the dosha calms down, it does get easier because the mind isn't overactive and we start to see things a little differently. So we have to work it from both sides, if that makes sense in the beginning.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I could see that because when I spent time in Colombia with the Mamos and
Mhm.
the indigenous people, and in Brazil with the Huni Queen, they don't talk hardly at all. And they're just completely in their body, like almost in this meditative state. And they say that our words should be medicine. And we shouldn't really speak them unless they are medicine. And I feel being an extrovert, I definitely talk too much and have a lot of thoughts. Like I've had practitioners tell me, slow down your thoughts. So that is my area of work. So I can appreciate so
Mhm.
much what you're saying. And what has been your practice for really training your mind? Like getting a hold
Mhm.
of your mind and realizing that you are way more than your mind. Your mind is not you.
That's right. Thank goodness. That's yoga. That's what yoga is.
Mm.
Yoga being the unity of body, mind, and spirit, say, and it's a set of practices to take us toward a state of yoga, that state of union. And in the West, the idea of yoga, and actually in India now too, it's been diluted and lost in many ways, especially diluted. And what that means is that we think us doing asana is about the body. It's not, it's about your mind. And yes, are you taking care of your body? Yes, of course. Are you going to have some benefit? Yes. But is that the purpose? No. No, the purpose is for us to be able to, the mind, yeah, so that we actually have freedom. You see, I don't have the freedom to be me if my mind is running amok and I'm believing it and following it. But when we can learn to, first we learn to observe it, and then we do practices with consistency that then it rein the mind in, and then it will behave a little better. And sometimes it still doesn't, but we can laugh at it instead. Say,
Right. We can
not believe it. Yeah.
like that.
I was just going to say that and so what yoga practices are meant to do is for us to understand and be able to work with the movement of our prana, the movement of our energy, our life force. And this is the same in Ayurveda, is that we want to eat things and live in a way that allows for the best movement of prana. So those are the things that make the difference and have it be, yes, there are hard things in life, and yes, we have what it takes. And that's actually some of the satisfaction in life, is to work through the challenge and then have the results. And then we get the next one.
Yes. I think it's so important to have a consistent practice because I've ebb and flow where I have a consistent practice and then I don't. And I can
Mhm,
see the difference so much. And I can't, my L4 and L5 are rotated, so I can't do flexion. But Kundalini yoga, because it's not so much moving through asanas as much, it's so much breath work and a lot of
mhm,
breath work. And I love it. It really works for me. And some of the cooling breaths, is the pitta, and then just breathing in the cool breath and calming the body and the mind. And when I consistently practice Kundalini, my week just flows almost effortlessly because I'm tapped into my spirit more versus
mhm,
when I'm not doing it and then I have too many thoughts, too much indecision. I'm
mhm,
not as clear on what is the best thing for this
mhm,
day. And that can be frustrating when you can't tap in, you can't tap into the highest power, the highest source, and where you should spend your time because our time on this earth is so limited. And so I do
mhm.
think it's so important that we have this consistent practice so we can do, I
Enjoy
guess,
life.
yeah, enjoy life. Yes, enjoy life and do good work for humanity, especially being a healer. So I'm glad that the Ayurveda path found you. And I love your school. And you have such good videos, and your food looks amazing. And you talk about overeating in your intro video. And I think a lot of us in America overeat. And I think this goes probably back to our disconnection with ourselves and the earth because we're trying to fill ourselves up, but it
Mm,
doesn't work. It only hurts us more. And so I
mhm.
didn't know if you could talk about, from an Ayurvedic standpoint, what does overeating do to our body, our life force, the prana?
We're divinely designed. But what our stomach can hold is about what our individual two hands can hold,
Mm,
meaning my hands, my stomach, your hands, your stomach. And when you start to pay attention to that, you see that, oh yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And no, we don't all eat exactly the same amount, and we don't need to, but it's not a huge variation. But what happens when we overeat is that the stomach says, I can't do it. When uh, it has a way of telling us, actually. Now, this is assuming that you're fairly calm and that you don't have any active disease going on in the area and that. And if you do that and you eat a meal, your body will tell you when it has taken in all it can digest. And that will be by a burp.
mm,
Now, if you're burping all the way through the meal, because you burp all the time, then you know that you have indigestion. But what overeating does is it just drowns out all that. And we just run over it. And we
mm,
eat till as you mentioned, It's until we can feel like we can keep our feet on the ground. In other words, we need a certain amount of that weight to actually have us feel grounded. And in Ayurveda, we speak of it as grounding vata dosha. So we're grounding that light, airy part of us. Excuse me. So what happens is when we put too much food in there at one time is that, you know, the stomach goes, oh my, and passes it on. And then we have digestive problems in the small intestines. And we can experience that in a lot of different ways, but what's happening is that Agni, the digestive capacity at the cellular level, can't do its job very well. And so then the body starts saying, well, okay, what are we going to do with all this? Well, it's not really well digested, but let's put it somewhere, basically. And so the nourishment then that goes into your bloodstream to create body tissue is not of the best quality, right? Because there's some disturbance in the area and that. And then sometimes we overeat because we're avoiding our emotions, or we're really unhappy about something. And so that also disturbs the quality of the nourishment. And then we start making poor quality body tissue. So the muscle tissue is not as good. We make cellulite. We have skin gets droopy, and so forth. And then when we don't have good nourishment getting all the way through the tissues of the body, then we experience things like infertility, because those organs are not getting fed properly. And then after that, even though I'm still overeating, but you see, I can't digest it, then I start to have lower energy. And that lower energy is because our capacity to digest, our Agni, is the main thing that feeds our vitality and our immunity. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It's a very, very specific description and very accurate, but to someone not acquainted with Ayurveda, just to see how, well, that makes sense. If I can't digest it well, I'm not going to get the result. But we've been trained to just think of it in terms of, I don't know, vitamins and amino acids and whatever. But that's not really what makes the quality of our body tissue, which is our body. Yeah, so that our food and what happens with it becomes our body. And therefore, and also our energy level, how we feel.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a great explanation. So, for those of you listening, look at both of your hands and put them together, and this is the size that your meal should be. And if we look at our hands, how much of their hands should be greens and vegetables versus a grain and or a protein? Have like a rule of thumb when it comes to how many vegetables versus grains you're eating and protein?
Yeah, I think the best way to think about it is we use something, we call it the balance bowl. It's just proportions of types of food. So we talked about how we're made up of the elements, the same 5 elements of nature. Then the food, it has the elements in it too. So we want to take in the elements that we need. So in order to maintain an adult body, we need about 60% of the food to be what adds to the body. So that means it's food that's going to have primarily the sweet taste. Now, not sugary, but the sweet taste. So whole grains, sweet vegetables. And then 40% of the plate, half of it, that 40% is made up of vegetables that are cleansing, dark leafy greens, things of that nature. They draw things, extract from the body. And then that other 20% of that, the 40%, is either a legume or meat. Now, you might notice that those proportions are a little bit different than what a lot of people do these days. And that's why a lot of people are feeling so ungrounded. They're having too much of the extractive green smoothies and things like that. That makes us feel light for a little bit, but then it makes us feel light, too light, and it doesn't feel good. And so then we want to go eat something really heavy, you see. And so then it ends up being this bouncing around thing. The same thing when people think, rice is, carbohydrates are not good, or rice is not going to be good. And then they don't eat it, and then they want to go eat sugary food. Well, see, that's the body trying to take care of itself, but just not in a very good way. So we need to have foods that add to the body in order to maintain it. And we need to have some that draw things out. So why is that legume or meat the extractive? Well, it's because it's hard to digest. And so the body has to give up energy to digest it. Yeah. So then again, that can look a whole lot of different ways. It could look like pizza, it could look like sushi, it could look like soup. So there's a lot of ways that can happen. We've been trained to look at the nitty-gritty and the little teeny parts of things when we don't need to. It just makes it too complicated, and then our mind gets too involved. As we said at the beginning today, we're part of nature. And actually, it's fairly simple. And if we keep it on that simple level, we can spend less time just trying to maintain the body and more time having the experience of life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is important because I do think there's all these food fads and diets and superfoods kind of annoy me a little bit because I feel like there's not this one answer, and you should be looking at what's growing in your area, natural food,
Exactly.
whole food. What farmer do you have in your area? What wild herb do you have in your area? What plants are you drawn to, instead of thinking of this like goji berries or something? I'm gonna have goji berries in my oatmeal because it's just not sustainable. I don't think for anyone for us to eat this
It's
way, but
really not. Sometimes people ask me about, well, you suggest all these spices that only grow in warm places and human beings have been shipping spices around the world for thousands of years. And so the idea that we might share with each other, and then we also find out that those things will grow where we are. There is a lot of that too. And it's also important to take a look at what's happening in my area. Yeah, as you mentioned. And so all of those are important pieces of this. And that's why we talk about the principles of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda isn't rules. There are no rules, but the principles are there. So now how can I work with the principles where I am? And I can get some things just by walking out my door and into the forest, and I can get some things that I'm going to need to get because somebody else grew it and then somebody else brought it. And we need to give ourselves that freedom today, but that we recognize that it needs to come because of the principles and because of what we need. Yeah. And not necessarily, as you said, and I agree that I think the superfood thing is it's just a marketing thing, and we need to try to keep that out of our eating as much as possible. Yeah, because
yeah.
it's not sustainable. Then everybody goes after this one thing, and then it eventually won't be available to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, it causes the price where it comes from to go up. We are transitioning into summer. The solstice is coming up, and I feel that with Ayurveda and different like Tibetan medicine, I know, which is very similar. So Rigpa is
Mhm.
very similar to Ayurveda. There's this change, a little shift occurs in these different seasons. And so can you talk to us about maybe how people should shift a little bit their diet or their practices as we move into summer?
Right. Yeah, it is a good idea. Especially if there are things that you particularly like. In other words, in the winter time, if you have cold weather, then your Agni is stronger and so you can have a little bit heavier foods. But now as you go into the hot weather, the sun is, the sun is strong and the temperature is high. So your Agni actually gets a little bit lower because it's trying to keep your body cool, right? So you need to just nurture it and not overfeed it. And this is a time where I'm going to say, I know this might be difficult for some people to hear, but that it's not a great idea to have raw foods in the summer. I know that's what we tended to do because, oh, it's growing and it's coming right now, but it's harder to digest and your Agni is a little lower. So if you're going to do it, better to just cook it a little bit. Then that starts the process for your body to digest it. And an important thing to remember is that when it doesn't matter how perfect and wonderful the food is, how much prana it has or whatever, if you can't digest it. So what we need to do is take a look at ourselves and say, okay, what do I need to do to be able to digest well? Yeah. And so maybe that's have a little ginger tea, before the meal, some very, very simple things. And so then in terms of adjusting for the season, it shouldn't be dramatic, huge adjustments. It should be nice, subtle adjustments like that. And of course, it depends on where you live too. In the extreme north, extreme south, you need a little bit more maybe. But you're also what's available, your vegetables and so fruits available will tell you, what needs to happen. So
Thank you for sharing that. That's really good to hear. How do you feel about eating fresh fruit in the morning? For
uh-huh.
someone, you know, because I feel like I gravitate towards fruit in the morning. Like I just love eating just simple fruit in the morning, and it makes me feel better than like if I ate scrambled eggs.
Mhm,
Like I could eat scrambled eggs at 10 potentially, but not
mhm.
at like 7 or 8.
Right, right. And so and so what we've been talking about, this Agni, your digestive capacity, it's lower in the morning because you just woke up. Yeah. And so, having some people having something like porridge or something of that nature is great. And fruit is also good. It's good not to have it cold, right?
Mm.
Because digesting cold things is very, very difficult. And so you warm it up or you have it room temperature, or even you just warm it a little bit. And I live in the tropics, and we actually will take the mango, even it's sitting out all night, but it's still not quite body temperature. And so we'll put it in the oven for just at the
Mm.
lowest temperature for just a couple of minutes, just to bring it up to that body temperature. And it's amazing what a difference it makes. Yeah. Or some fruits
Wow.
you might cook. Yeah. So, but that little warming, and I just started doing that last year. I mean, I just thought, maybe we should just try that. And so having fruit in the morning is a good idea for a lot of people, because it's lighter. The eggs are very difficult to digest. They're
Mhm.
heavier. And so not everybody's going to have an Agni that can handle that. And so each of us, that's where we need to find out, where am I today?
Mhm.
Because today might be a little bit different than last week. And give ourselves a little bit of flexibility around that. So we have fruit some days of the week, and we have a porridge made with rice or barley or things like that on the other days. And sometimes we'll even make something we call stovetop bread, which is we just take fresh flour and put it together and with some nuts and some spices, and you can cook it in a pan on top or a pot, or you can cook it in the oven and have that. So there are a lot of possibilities. Some people like to just have some rice and vegetables because it's easy for them. Yeah. But the fruit is a nice idea. And interestingly, a lot of people say, oh, I can't sustain myself that long on fruit
Right,
until,
yeah.
yeah. And I used to be like that too. But what happens is that when your meals are balanced, then you're satiated, and then your body gets into a cycle with nature. And so then the fruit is okay, because we should be hungry before the next meal, not starving, not irritable, but it's like, yeah, I'm hungry. I'm ready for the meal. that's a great sign that your body is ready.
Yeah, it's important to pay attention to when you get hungry and to, like you said, to
Mhm.
eat on schedule, which I think a lot of people in modern countries are struggling with that, eating at erratic times, and that really makes it hard for the agni to kick in when it needs to. And I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much of a problem that was until I was reading about it and I was fasting, but I was kind of being
Mhm.
inconsistent. So then I was fasting and then I couldn't make it and then I would eat dinner or something. So then I was skipping the most important meal at
Mhm.
lunch, and then I realized it was counterproductive because I had fasted for a week and felt amazing. And I was like, oh, I want to keep going with this. But it really didn't need to. My body was done. But my mind, of course, was thinking thinking it wanted to keep doing it. But my body was like, no, 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 it's time to eat. So that's when I
Right.
realized that I have to be consistent. And lunch is probably the most important meal that I eat, as you say,
Yes.
as you mentioned. So, yeah, that is important. So, for those of you listening,
Mm.
make sure you carve out time to eat at lunch. And then dinner, right, needs to be a little bit smaller of a meal, um,
Mostly it needs to be a little lighter. The food
lighter.
needs not as heavy.
Mm,
For some people, the quantity is going to be similar, but again, lighter food. So you might have zucchini rather than a sweet potato and things like that. Yeah.
mhm. I
And
like
yes. And so uh and so then you learn to recognize, the reason you're going to feel appropriately hungry at dinner is because you digested what you ate at lunch. And so then you start to be able to be your own healer, to take care of.
mm,
But there's one other thing I just want to mention, and that is that eating at night is deadly. Yeah.
mm.
Some people will get away with it for a while, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. And the accumulation that happens from that is causes disease. Yeah.
What disease do you think it causes the most eating at night?
It depends on the individual. For some people, it'll contribute to the high blood pressure. It
Mm,
will any of the diseases of the digestive tract, Crohn's disease, and any kind of IBS type problem. Uh, but more so, will contribute to cancers and that, because
mm.
you get that accumulation of toxins along with the excess dosha that's having you eat at night. So.
That's so good to know. And some people have a totally different biorhythm. They're working through the night.
Mhm.
A lot of people do eat late at night. Their jobs, me and my sister were just talking, and she was like, I really want mom to stop eating late at night because she works until like
Mm.
7:38, and then she's eating. And she's like,
Right.
that's such a problem, and she tries and she does good. And then it's just, we get into these habits and these rhythms. It could be really hard to break with our culture, with how we have to work.
Mhm.
It's you have,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
People who have those difficult work schedules, then we just have to find something consistent and make the best of it. The big thing is not to go to sleep with
Mm.
food digesting. This is what causes the problem.
So
So go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, how many hours do you think? And I know this probably depends on the constitution, right? Because some people digest faster, but is it 2 hours? How many hours after you eat do you need?
Before going to bed.
Yeah.
Oh, ooh, minimum two, and that's assuming that the food was not too heavy.
Okay.
Otherwise, 3 to 4 is best.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes the body 4 to 6 hours. Takes actually 6 hours for a meal to digest. You're in pretty good territory after 4 hours. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And before we close, I would love to hear if you have 3 signs that your digestive system isn't working and needs love, and
Mhm.
maybe 3 signs that it is. You have a good acne. You're doing
Mhm.
good. What are some warning signs that we can look out for an impaired digestive system?
Right. Well, it would be things like skin problems, acne, eczema, those kinds of things. But those earlier signs are going to be gas, bloating, heartburn, uh, reflux, We look at disease in stages. Those are all stages 1, 2, 3, all really easy to reverse and get rid of. Yeah, you go further, it's still reversible, but it takes more effort. And that,
Mm,
so so three things. So those are the things that would be telling you something. Or waking up groggy, that you're
mm,
groggy in the morning. That says that your Agni's not working well. Then, and so what are the things to do? Well, it's what we've been talking about, that you need to chew your food thoroughly and to have regular eating and sleeping times. And the third thing would be to start to balance your meals. Just get in the ballpark. It's not a rigid thing. Just even if you go to a restaurant, you say, and for example, if I go to a restaurant, often I might be ordering a side dish, along with something else or something, and I'm just going to do something to make up that balanced meal as well as I can. That effort will make a difference. Yeah.
mm. I love that. So inspiring. Very
Hmm.
inspiring. I love the 60% whole grains, 40% dark greens, or the cleansing vegetables, and 20% protein. I think that is wonderful. And that's about what I love. I don't think I'm getting the 40% as much. I'm thinking my legumes, my protein is like 40, and my
Hmm.
greens are like 20, 30. So I could
Yeah.
switch that for sure. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm better.
It'll
Um,
feel.
yeah. Sometimes I'll do just greens and then a boiled egg for
Hmm.
lunch, and I don't have the sweet food. But it does make me feel so good when I do that, when I just do the greens with the protein.
Yeah, I know. I used to love when asparagus would would come into season, and for a whole month I would eat a plate of asparagus and it felt really good. It's not but the effect is longer term, right? It's not just how I feel in the moment. It's that, well, what's it doing in my system, over the rest of today and tomorrow and the next day? And that's where we need that balance of the elements in order to keep things balanced in us, in mind and body and spirit.
So wise. You're so wise. And do you have, so for the people that are eating imbalanced, maybe they're eating late at night, is there a tea that you go to or that you can give people that have these cravings to help them get in balance? Like a warm
Mm.
tea? What would be your go-to?
Uh, in the evening, I'd probably go to something like a chamomile, something that's going to calm you down. You can also go to vetiver and that, but and then another tea to have earlier in the day would be a digestive tea, which is just cumin, coriander, and fennel seeds. And you
Mm,
just soak them and boil them and have the tea. That'll help your digestion during the day. Yeah, so that you don't have as much craving in the evening. But the
mm.
cravings all go away when you start getting a good balance of foods in there on a regular basis. And then that leaves a lot of energy and space for creativity, for things that are more enjoyable. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna try. It's been a while since I did the coriander, fennel, and cumin. Um,
Hmm.
and I have them, but I don't do it, but I know that's supposed to balance every dosha, right?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah,
You could also put cardamom in there instead of fennel in the summertime. That might be nice. Try that too. Hmm.
thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was very inspiring. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and Ayurvedic practices. What is the best way for people to reach out to you and stay in contact with you?
Oh, well, our website is halepule.com. It's HALEPULE.com. And we're on Instagram, of course, and it's HALE_PULE, I believe. Yeah. And yeah, and we'd love to hear from you. We have a great free community where we just talk about Ayurveda and yoga and things that we can do to empower ourselves to be our own healers.
I love that. And you teach online and in person?
Yes, Yes, that's right. Yeah, we're just bringing back the in-person now. So I'll be in the UK actually in August,
In
at end of
August.
in August. Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you ever teach in Bali?
Mm-hmm. A little bit, yes.
A little
And
bit.
yes, and next year I will be teaching more here. So yeah,
Mm. So if
yeah,
you want to take a trip
yeah.
to Bali and meet Myra and learn about Ayurveda, I highly recommend that, and definitely check out the online offerings too. And I'll put a link in the show notes, so scroll down to the bottom of the show notes. So thank you so much for this inspiration.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's a great opportunity to share this with people. I think the thing I'd like to say is that it's not rules. Don't make it into that. You don't
Mm.
have to get in a fight with it. Just have some fun with it. And it's just keep reminding yourself, this is about nature, and it will bring you a much greater sense of security in life because
Mm.
it connects us to more to who we really are. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this episode with a friend that is interested in Ayurveda medicine. Myra explains it so well. Definitely scroll to the bottom of the show notes, click on Myra's offerings, and hit follow so our little show, the Wild Herb Podcast, can grow. Be well and stay wild.